Mr. President, I rise today to urge my colleagues, and I think they're all going to do this, to support Senate Bill 3614. That is the United States Russian Federation Seafood Reciprocity Act of 2022. A bill, pretty simple bill, Mr. President, that will require reciprocity between Russia and the United States of America as it relates to our seafood industry and seafood trade. Now, let me give you a little bit of background on this because it actually relates to what's going on in the world today. All eyes are currently on the Russian aggression towards Ukraine right now, and for good reason. We've seen the stories that the dictator, authoritarian Vladimir Putin is going to invade Ukraine. We hope, I think every one of us hopes that that doesn't happen, but it's looking like it may. But Mr. President, what's less talked about is the last time there was an invasion by Russia of Ukraine, what ended up happening in terms of sanctions, and in particular, American seafood sanctions and the ramifications of the last Russian invasion of Ukraine. Here's what actually happened. In 2014, when Putin invaded the Crimean Peninsula and eastern Ukraine, President Obama put sanctions on Russia. Now, I wasn't here as a senator then, but I supported that. Russia then retaliated in terms of sanctions in 2014, and here's one of the things they did. They banned all seafood exports from America, whether it's Alaska, Massachusetts, into Russia. So that was about 9 years ago, Mr. President. That ban still exists today. Let me repeat this. If you're a big fisherman in Massachusetts or the great state of Alaska, the senator from Massachusetts knows we both have thousands of great fishermen, you cannot export one fish to Russia. 9 years of a ban. And guess what? The United States lets Russia seafood into America almost duty-free. Let me repeat that. A ban on American exports to Russia, 9-year blockade. Not one Massachusetts fisherman or Alaska fisherman can export his great American seafood product to Russia. Russia gets to import Russian seafood into America duty-free. That is called unfair by any measure. By any measure. And it's certainly unfair to the great fishermen of my state, as well as the fishermen of Massachusetts. Now, Mr. President, I've talked about Alaskan fishermen for, well, as long as I've been a senator. About 66% of all seafood harvested in the United States comes from the great state of Alaska. So we're big exporters. What's happened, though, in this regard is that as we export, we Alaskans, fishermen from Massachusetts, as we export seafood around the world, we've not been able to export anything in that market, the Russian market, for 9 years. And at the same time, the value of Russian seafood imported into the United States, surprise, has skyrocketed because there's no tariff on it. Skyrocketed 173% since 2013. That was the year before the embargo was imposed. Again, directly competing against American seafood producers, American fishermen. Matter of fact, the Russians are actually starting to steal market share from American fishermen, whether Massachusetts or Alaska. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, Mr. President. This is unfair by anybody's definition. So my bill is very simple. It says, like we need in all trade around the world, we just need straight up reciprocity. Right now, we can't export a thing to Russia, and they export their fish to America duty-free. So the bill's simple. It just says, until we can export into the Russian market, they shouldn't be able to export into our market. I can't imagine any U.S. senator objecting to this. It's called reciprocity. It's called fairness. And it's righting a wrong that's been in the works for 9 years now, whether you're a fisherman in Massachusetts or a fisherman in Alaska. So, Mr. President, I've raised this issue with the Obama administration, the Trump administration, now the Biden administration. We're still waiting on reciprocity. So it's time to act. The United States Senate can act. And I'm hopeful that we're going to act on this today. As a matter of fact, I've checked with all my Republican colleagues, and every single one of them is supportive of basic reciprocity for fishermen. So, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Finance Committee be discharged from further consideration of Senate 3614 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
I'm reserving the right to object.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just want to say at this juncture that I sincerely respect the senator from Alaska's concerns about the Russian seafood imports, and I believe it's unfair. I believe it's improper that Russia has banned American seafood imports since 2014. So I agree with you. And Alaska and Massachusetts are the two fishing giants of the United States of America. We are. However, I have heard from seafood processors in my home state with concerns about potential sudden effects of a new immediate ban on imports, on their workforce, including hundreds of union workers in the seafood processing industry. And that would be right now. So with that in mind, I'm going to object to passage of this bill at this time, but I would say to my friend from Alaska that I would invite a collaboration on this subject because I think we can resolve it so that it benefits not just Alaska, which is very important, but also Massachusetts and every other state. And again, I think we can, in fact, bring all the stakeholders together, do it very briefly, maybe over this break that we're about to begin here in the Senate. I'm very grateful to the senator from Alaska for raising this very important issue, and I want to ensure him and all of the Alaska fishing industry that we want to have conversations that protect the American seafood industry and its workers, and I want to partner with him towards that goal and maybe just use the next 10 days or so to accomplish that goal. So at this point, I would object, Madam President, to the motion.
Is heard. Senator from Alaska.
Madam President, I appreciate my friend, Senator Markey, on his offer to work through this. He and I have worked together on a number of issues, actually a number of issues particularly related to America's fishermen. As he mentioned, Massachusetts has a lot of fishermen. I have tens of thousands of my fellow Alaskans involved in the industry. And again, I think he and I certainly agree with this concept. I think every U.S. senator agrees with the concept of basic fairness in trade, basic fairness in terms of reciprocity in trade, all trade, but especially the seafood trade, we've had 9 years, Madam President, of no reciprocity from Russia, Putin, the thug. We shouldn't have to take it anymore, and it's hurting my constituents. Now, my understanding of the issue raised by Senator Markey is that it's primarily Russian pollock that is imported into Massachusetts. And as you know, Senator Markey, in Alaska, we have a huge amount of fishermen engaged in that fishery. So maybe what we should look at is make sure Massachusetts workers are actually processing American, Alaskan pollock, not the authoritarian pollock in Russia. And that would be a fair way to resolve this, but I appreciate the offer to work together on this, but I will tell you, we need to work quickly because it's been 9 years of non-reciprocal seafood trade. I'm almost certain that Massachusetts fishermen who once exported to Russia have been hurt by this seafood blockade, as well as my fishermen. And I take Senator Markey's offer and suggestion in good faith. Hopefully we can work over the work period in the next couple weeks, get to a result on this. Alaskans will supply Massachusetts workers pollock or cod or whatever you're processing, and then we bring reciprocity in terms of trade, which currently does not exist between Russia and the United States, and it's wrong, and it's unfair, and it needs to be fixed by us, and it needs to be fixed by the Biden administration as well. I yield the floor.